Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 278th ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel and recording from the MSP studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How you doing today, Kyle?
I'm doing great, Cameron. How are you?
I'm doing well.
You started off 2024 pretty good so far?
Yes, actually, I was going to bring that up because last week you asked me about New Year's resolutions.
Really putting you on the spot about New
but
Year's stuff.
I got thinking about it, and I came up with one or two even. I need to be on my phone less. Leave a like on this video if you also need to be on your phone less.
I'm sure most of us could probably benefit from that.
So I started right away. I uninstalled Instagram.
Wow.
Don't need it. Don't like it. Now it's out of my life.
That's great.
But that was an easy one because I already didn't like it. I would get on Instagram, scroll for like 5 seconds, be like, what am I doing? And close out. Now, TikTok and Twitter, different ballgame. Discord,
Tougher
different
battles.
ballgame. Yeah, tougher battles. So it's going to be an ongoing thing. We'll see how many apps I can uninstall this calendar year.
I have to be on social media a fair amount for my job.
Yeah.
But Facebook, just a little side note here. Facebook, maybe, I don't know, a year or two ago, introduced the greatest thing ever where your business and your personal account are now separate.
Nice.
Because I used to get on Facebook for work, but I would like log in. It was like through your personal account. So I'd like see all this personal like newsfeed stuff and I would just get sucked into it.
Yeah.
And I would spend too much time just looking at meaningless content on
Yes.
Facebook. But now I just get right on there, just right on the business account and don't have to see any other stuff, and saved many hours
Yeah.
of my life.
Yeah, I'd like to prioritize. I feel like I could, wean myself off of TikTok and Twitter to some extent. Oh, that's a tough ask.
Yeah.
I want to prioritize our Patreon supporters over on Discord and my real life friends on Discord.
That's the last one that's got to go.
Exactly. And I'll never stop paying for YouTube Premium.
I'll never quit you.
Watch endless hours of YouTube videos all day
YouTube
long.
Premium is incredible.
So
You can set up little timers on your phone where you can override them still, but it'll at least remind you like you're out of time. I've done that on Instagram just to
Give yourself parental locks.
I have to acknowledge that I've been on too long if I want to keep going.
your phone gets on to you and you have to be like, yes, I understand.
Yeah.
Now get out of the way. Let me keep scrolling.
Makes you at least think about it.
Good luck with those resolutions.
Oh, thank you. Do you watch that national championship game?
Yes.
I didn't watch all of it. Yeah,
Washington really struggled.
they did.
I feel like that was like out of character for them. I think they were a better team than they showed.
Yeah.
But Michigan's good. I mean,
Obviously.
I think I still would have loved to see Georgia get a shot at Michigan, but that's not how it happened. And, I still think Michigan deserves to be national champion.
One thing I think I established in my own head is Alabama messed everything up
They did.
by losing to Texas
Yes.
earlier in the season.
100%. That game dictated the entire course of the college football season.
Because then those two teams were attached
yes.
to each other the rest of the way.
And that was like before Alabama figured out their quarterback issues.
Exactly.
Now,
Now,
that's SEC homers.
yeah. Now, that didn't stop Alabama. Like, Alabama still had the opportunity in front of them.
Yeah.
Had to play Michigan. Should have won that game if it weren't for a bad snap, probably. Poor guy. But
Which he already transferred to Ohio State.
did he pick Ohio State?
Yeah.
Wow, incredible. Soft landing spot for him. But where was I going with that? Oh, yeah. That Alabama losing to Texas basically kept Georgia out of the Final Four.
Yeah.
Crazy. Georgia, yeah. But all Georgia had to do was show up better in the SEC championship game. But I feel like I'm coming around to your view that the top three teams in the country are Michigan, Georgia, and Alabama.
Cameron, Georgia beat Florida State 63-3.
That's true. Yeah. That is true. Yeah, and we'll get to this later. We need to start the show proper. We'll talk about coaching carousel stuff a little bit later. We're going to talk about Mizzou basketball. We're going to talk coaching carousel. Mizzou is now a part of it, unfortunately. We're looking for a new defensive coordinator. Before we get to all of that, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, leave us a review wherever you listen to us, and of course you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Missouri Sports Pod. Start it out with basketball. Mizzou basketball goes 0-2 on the week, losing at home to Georgia 75-68, and then losing 90-77 to Kentucky at Rupp Arena. Really was hoping for a split between these two games. Georgia started out incredibly hot, could not miss. Mizzou was down big early. I actually missed the first few minutes of this game. I tuned in just in time to see Mizzou go on a 17-2 run to get themselves back in it. They even had a lead. It was really back and forth in the second half. Missouri had a lead, couldn't hold on to it, just didn't have enough in the tank, ended up losing. There was a stretch towards the end of the game, maybe with like 3 minutes left, where Mizzou had 3 empty possessions on offense in a row. That just looked so bad.
Just like forced drives that weren't quality looks.
And right before that, they had been stringing together multiple good possessions in a row, getting some stops when they needed them. And then it just all unraveled there in those 3 or 4 possessions. And it really felt like then it was going to be too little too late. You needed a miracle at that point, and they just couldn't make it happen.
Yeah, it's really a pretty brutal loss to start off SEC play. Cameron, I don't know if there's a metric, like a KenPom metric, that measures like how likely a team is to like go on a run, like in a good or bad way. But Missouri's got to be number 1 if that exists. Just like susceptibleness of going on massive streaks.
Yeah, streakiest team either direction.
Yes, because they do that in every game, good and bad.
Yeah, in the Georgia game, Missouri's defense had no answer for their big man, Russell Chua. He 18-11, 5 of 5 field goal shooting, 8 of 9 from the free throw line. The box score for this game was kind of a weird one. Missouri shot twice as many twos as Georgia. Missouri made as many 2-point field goals as Georgia attempted. But Georgia made 12 threes to Mizzou's 6. And also, Missouri attempted 7 free throws to Georgia's 21.
Yeah, we lose the free throw battle every game, literally every game. Our lack of interior defense, well, we're bad on the perimeter too, but just the lack of a competent big man hurts us really on both sides of the floor. And it's so obvious, even playing like a middling Georgia team with a decent big man, they just completely exposed us.
Yeah, and Coach Gates feels like in every press conference for the last 5 games or so after the game, he's talking about the free throw discrepancy. And it is frustrating when when Missouri shoots 9 fewer threes than Georgia, doubles them up on 2-point attempts, and doesn't get to the free throw line. Feels like game plan wise, you're kind of doing what you need to do to get into the paint and then therefore get to the free throw line. But you can no longer put it on the refs when it's a trend like this. And Missouri is one of the worst teams in the country at getting to the free throw line.
You can't put it on the refs either. When I watch our undersized point guards drive into the lane and then stop in the middle of the lane and then like pick up their dribble and look around for someone to pass it to. Yeah. How many times does that happen in a game where, and Sean East is putting on an incredible season. He's playing really well, but how often do we see, the guards slash into the lane and then just pick up their dribble in the middle of the paint and don't know if they should shoot or pass or whatever? It's just really frustrating and very fragmented offense.
Yeah, looking on KenPom at free throw rate, Missouri's 325th in the country this year in offensive free throw rate. That is noticeably worse from last year. Last year they were still not great, 258. But this is not necessarily like Dennis Gates' team. We know they're going to give up rebounds. They're not going to be a great rebounding team. They're going to try to force turnovers on defense. Stuff like that tracks across, even going back to Cleveland State, Dennis Gates teams. But free throw rate on offense, 45th, his first year at Cleveland State, and his third year at Cleveland State. So this is not a scheme thing. This is a personnel thing, I think.
100%. I think it's personnel. And we've talked about their activity in the transfer portal and we just kind of have a black hole at the wing right now. Like John Tanjay he actually did play against Kentucky, but I was wondering if he was even alive earlier this week because he just has not played at all. And, he's a 1,000-point scorer in last year. So kind of wondering what's going on there.
It's just a weird question mark, like swing and a miss portal edition.
Caleb Grill is injured. I mean, we just aren't getting anything at the wing. And we don't really,
we don't have a SEC caliber starter at the 5 spot.
Not even close.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like if Aiden Shaw was 3 inches taller, even as rough around the edges as he is at times, I think he could be that.
Yeah.
But he's 6'8" and not completely developed. So you can't expect him to be holding down the 5 spot in the SEC already. Let's see. Anything else about this Georgia game? It was frustrating to see them battle back and then it just all unravel so quickly. Let's see here. Sean East did have a nice game against Georgia. 18 points, 8 assists, 0 turnovers. Really solid from him. Against Kentucky, they fought hard and I think looked better than the final score says. Both teams started out hot, but Kentucky was on another level, on fire. 35 points in the first 10 minutes of the game for Kentucky.
Again, it's one of those things where it feels like we're saying this every game, where the opposing team is doing something that shouldn't be happening. It's like, okay, wow, they're really hot. They're going to cool off. And sometimes they don't. And it's like, wow, that's happening almost every game we play where the other team is just going on an unbelievable streak.
There was no Anthony Robinson from Mizzou in this game. He was out with an illness. And then Sean East, again, 19 points, but he got elbowed in the face in the second half, had to sit out for a little bit. Otherwise, I think he would have played 40 minutes.
He looked like it hit a pretty gnarly little knot under his eye.
Yeah, he was down for a bit.
I think if I was like reading his lips correctly, he was saying like, I can't see, like when he was on the bench and stuff for a second.
I mean, it was already swollen when he came back in the game. It looked like he was playing with one eye when he came back in late.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'd love to know what happens if he doesn't have to exit the game there. But Missouri was fighting, just wasn't enough.
Yeah, just pretty much held at arm's length like the whole game. Just kind of fighting in that like 8 to 10 point range, really a lot of the game.
And offensively, it wasn't that bad. I mean, East with 19, Carter with 20. I mean, he scored 77. Tamar Bates had 18 points. But Kentucky scored 90.
Yeah, it felt like Kentucky was scoring on like 70% of their possessions.
Kentucky shot 64% on their 2-point attempts. That's hard to beat. Talking about Sean East, though, we're getting close to. Are we halfway through the season now?
Roughly, yeah.
Somewhere around there. And Sean East is putting up 17.3 points per game and leading the Missouri Tigers in scoring. Now, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, even though you have a 17-point score when you only have 8 wins, when you're 8-7 on the season, as Missouri is. They're a triple-digit KenPom team now at 104. But at least Sean East is giving us something to watch night in, night out. He's so crafty under the basket. Against Kentucky, he was getting a little bit of a mismatch on their freshman guards, where he was posting them up, backing them down into the paint, and getting them with fakes and up and under moves and stuff like that. And he's just been really fun to watch. He did shoot the ball 20 times against Georgia, which is something that we've been asking for a little bit more. He just needs that counterpart at the wing spot. He needs a forward who can hang with him and contribute the way he is. But all this talk about Sean East, 17.3 points per game. I want to give you a little bit of a pop quiz. Can you guess when was the last time? Let's imagine Sean East sustains 17.3 points per game. Could you venture a guess when was the last time Missouri's leading scorer had at least 17.3 points per game? I've got a few of the close ones, and obviously I've got the last one that did that in front of me. So if you want to throw some names out.
Oh, man. I know this is going to be one of those things where it's probably like really obvious and I can't think of it. But
let me give you one little hint. Last year, he's already better than last year's Kobe Brown, 15.8 points per game.
I was going to say Demoy and Kobe were probably both around that like 14, 15 range.
Exactly. Yeah.
But they kind of like cannibalize each other's like stats, which was fine. But man, let's see. It's tough to imagine very many players in the Konzo era like having those kind of individual performances, especially in those low-scoring games.
Mm-hmm.
That first year, like Cassius Robertson and like Jordan Barnett both were really good, but I don't think either one of them would have averaged that many points for the whole season.
Cassius Robertson, 16.3 points per game. He did lead the 2018 team.
Let's see. I know Xavier Pinson had some pretty impressive games, but maybe not for a complete season.
The other ones in the Konzo era, you're talking Drew Smith was back-to-back points per game leader, around 14 or so. Jordan Geist in 2019, 14.8 points per game.
Jordan Geist, yeah, he had like a sneaky, really good year. Oh, I got to fill in some holes
Do you
here.
think anybody in the Kim Anderson era is putting up those kind of numbers?
I doubt it.
Do you remember who was leading scorer 2 years of the Kim Anderson era? It was very unfortunate that he was the leading scorer.
Like Jonathan Williams.
J3 was the leading scorer Kim Anderson's first year.
Like, was that 2015 or something?
Yeah, and he was. I didn't even write this one down, but it was like 12 points per game or something.
Yeah.
Kevin Puryear was the leading scorer 2 of Kim Anderson's 3 seasons at around 11 points per game.
I mean, yeah, we might be looking at what, like Damari Carroll? Like 08, 09 range?
There's 2 guys since then. The 2014 season, this is one of the leading scorers in recent Mizzou history. Jabari Brown.
Yeah.
19.9 points per game.
Yeah, I definitely skipped over a little like Frank Haith era there, didn't I? Yeah, probably Marcus Denman in 2012 and
17.7 points per game.
And yeah, Jabari Brown, incredible season.
Yeah, but that's just to point out, that's the kind of game Sean East is playing right now. 17.3 points per game. Marcus Denman right there, 17.7. But what an insane year. Jabari Brown, almost 20 points per game. Basically 20 points per game. I'm pretty sure that
was a wild season, actually. Like Jordan Clarkson and Jabari Brown, like 2 NBA quality players, and we didn't even make the tournament.
Yeah, that was the NIT year, I believe. Jeez. So, shout out to Sean East for giving us something to tune into. It's still not a terrible team, but man, the SEC is so good this year.
Yeah, it really isn't like defensively, pretty terrible. What are we in Kim Palm? I mean, it feels like we should be sub 200. I know we're not, but
141.
It's just really, really brutal. Like how bad our defense is and rebounding.
Yeah. But this week we've got, in my mind, another opportunity to split 2 games. We're hosting South Carolina and then travel to Tuscaloosa to take on Alabama. South Carolina and second-year coach Lamont Paris, they have already won more games this year than they did all of last season. They're 13-2, had a nice win over Mississippi State to start conference play, but just got blown out by Alabama, 74-47. They've got a star in guard Michi Johnson. He's averaging 18 points per game this year. He led the way against Mississippi State with 24 points. And they also have Wofford transfer B.J. Mack is their best interior scorer. Get this, he is 6'8", 270. 13 points per game, but only shooting 42% from the field. So not the most efficient player, a little bit undersized for the 5 spot, height-wise at least.
Yeah.
So an opportunity there. South Carolina, not world beaters. They are
much improved over last year.
Definitely. But they are sort of in this range of teams that Missouri needs to be competitive with to have a respectable conference record.
Yeah.
But we just lost to one of those teams in Georgia.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, this seems like one of the more winnable games on the schedule if we're playing at home. So I said this about Georgia, but it's really got to be a game you just have to win it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at this point, like, Missouri is going to have to do something I don't think they're capable of doing, like over the rest of the season, to be able to even be in bubble contention. So
probably gonna have to have multiple road upsets,
Yes.
basically, or like win the rest of your home games or something insane like that.
It's unfortunate that it's this early in the conference season, and it already feels like it's kind of a lost cause for postseason play.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see as the season unfolds further how, and we've seen this from other teams in the SEC, but like when you're just reloading every year out of the transfer portal, the hit rate, the miss rate is going to be significant, I feel like. I mean, that's kind of like what we talked about with Kentucky with all their one and dones.
Yeah.
Where you're going to miss on a group. And if you're bringing in 4 transfers, 6 transfers that all are going to be like competing for starter minutes, you're just going to miss some of the time.
It still feels like it should be a significantly better hit rate than high school players, and it is. But yeah, it does seem weird to, and I just don't know what's going on with John Tonje. But I just don't. It's a long SEC season, and we're getting Caleb Grill back. But man, I really think Dennis Gates is maximizing this group already. And they're not very good. And so talent-wise, I just don't think they have the personnel to hang in night in and night out.
Yes, unfortunately, I've already started thinking about a potential transfer 5 that we're going to need to bring in next year.
Oh, 100%.
We can't keep missing on a impact transfer big. Moving on to Alabama, though, they are 10-5, but that record is a bit misleading. All 5 of their losses have come against teams in the KenPom top 35. Ohio State is 34th. They lost to them on a neutral floor. Also, all 5 of those losses are to top 25 offenses, and they allowed 88 points per game in those losses. So Alabama had a gauntlet of a season so far. They played Purdue, they played Arizona, lost to both of them. So it is interesting that their best win on the season, they blew out Liberty. They won a close game against Oregon, who's 49th in KenPom. So they're scheduling heavy. They're scheduling a lot of heavy hitters, but have lost most of those marquee matchups so far.
Yeah,
but they are the number 1 team in KenPom offense.
Wow. Yeah, Mark Sears, definitely one of the best players in the country, might be the best player in the SEC. I don't think it's possible that they could be as good as they were last year, losing the talent they did. And obviously Quinterly, kind of interestingly, going to Memphis, and he's having a great season at Memphis. But Alabama's still very solid, and playing on the road is going to be super difficult. That number 1 offense versus Mizzou's defense.
Yikes.
That's a matchup.
Yeah. Alabama has scored 98 points or more 7 times this year.
Jeez. Well, they're going to do it again.
Yeah. They started the season scoring 105, 102, 102, 98.
Wow. As much as I do not like Nate Oates, he seems like, I don't know, kind of a interesting guy, but maybe a suspect character. But he can coach some basketball.
Yeah. You mentioned Mark Sears. Obviously, he's kind of emerged out of the shadow from Brandon Miller and Javon Quinterly last year. He was kind of playing second fiddle to those guys, but he is one of the best players in the country. It does look like Alabama is probably going to be without forward Mohamed Wagi, who was injured. So that's a front court player that they'll probably be missing. That helps Missouri a little bit. But they still have 6'11" senior Grant Nelson, who transferred from South Dakota State.
North Dakota State?
It's one of those. So, they're just really good. And I think the way that they get up and down the floor, I feel like Missouri will like that a little bit, and maybe an opportunity for Missouri's offense to score a little bit.
They'll think they like it.
Exactly. Yeah.
It'll be like 105 to 85.
Yeah, exactly. Sean East, go get your 20 points. And then we'll move on. And we will move on to football. And we're going to talk coaching contracts a little bit here. Coach Drinkwitz got a contract extension, added 1 year to his contract, now goes through 2028, raises his pay to $9 million a year for the next 2 years.
Some serious money.
goes up to $9.25 the third year and $9.5 million for the final year on his contract. I was looking at other SEC coaching contracts. The only coaches making more than $9 million a year: Nick Saban, Brian Kelly, Kirby Smart. So Drink's right in there with like Josh Heupel and Lane Kiffin.
Do you have any footnotes you want to add about Nick Saban?
Nick Saban retiring.
Yeah, everybody knows this by the time they're hearing this. But we just heard about it earlier today.
That is a bit of a shakeup on the college football landscape. Although I did say, I said Nick Saban win the national championship and retire.
That you did,
like 3 weeks ago.
So you were half right.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still really hoping Kirby Smart to the New England Patriots.
Ooh, just get rid of Nick Saban and Kirby Smart.
Yeah, the same offseason.
That's fine.
And then the SEC runs through Columbia, Missouri.
Absolutely.
Along with Drink's extension, Kirby Moore got a raise from $850,000 this past season to $1.2 million next year, $1.3 million in 2025. That's what happens when you win 11 games.
I saw this is not totally random, but I saw his brother Kellen Moore, who was the OC for the Los Angeles Chargers. I saw he was going to get an interview as their head coach. No chance, right?
Don't do this.
No chance, right?
I said no chance last week about something else we're about to talk about.
Okay, we don't have to go there. That's a long shot, but
yeah. What would you say, like 80% that Kirby Moore stays?
Yeah, maybe like 80%.
Yeah, so we're bearing the lead a little bit here. Missouri defensive coordinator Blake Baker signed an extension, and he tweeted the Wolf of Wall Street, "I'm not leaving" video.
Yeah, he did, and it was really cool at the time.
He was going to be He's going to be a top 5 paid coordinator in the country, but has left Missouri to take the defensive coordinator (parentheses lateral move) take the defensive coordinator job at LSU.
This is something I had completely prepared myself for, like at the end of the year.
Yeah.
At the end of the season.
Yeah, me too, honestly.
Missouri goes 10-2, obviously 11-2 eventually, but after the regular season, they go 10-2. They have a great defense for 2 years in a row. I mean, Blake Baker comes in, revitalizes the defense. They're borderline elite. You could probably say they're elite. Both of the seasons he's here. Coordinators do not stick around whenever they're that successful, no matter where you are. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you're Missouri, Alabama, whatever. Those coordinators get poached. They go be head coaches somewhere, and that's the end of it. And if that's what was going to happen, I was totally prepared for that in my mind, emotionally, and it would have made a lot of sense.
Yeah, it feels like we were ready to talk about Blake Baker, head coach at Tulane.
Exactly. That would have made all the sense in the world. It would have been like, sucks to lose him, but I get it. And this doesn't have that same feeling for me. No. This is a little bit harder to watch, considering it does feel like he probably could have had a head coaching job, and but it also made a lot of sense for him to come back and run it back one more time with Mizzou. So seeing him go work for Brian Kelly, who fired him in the past, go get another shot with LSU, it's disappointing.
Yeah. For those that don't know, Blake Baker was on staff at LSU when Brian Kelly came in, and Brian Kelly chose not to retain him at that time. So, I don't know. I mean, what it tells me is Blake Baker not cut out for the wilderness, you know? The Missouri Tigers are a team forged in the wilderness.
That's exactly right.
Not one of these blue blood programs like LSU.
The wilderness forged doesn't lie. The weak will be exposed eventually, and that's what happened.
And now LSU is paying their new defensive coordinator more than any other assistant college football coach in the entire world.
And they had to pay Missouri $950,000 to buy him out.
Reeks of desperation on LSU's part, if I'm being honest.
And whenever LSU played at Missouri this season, they scored like 50 points.
Yeah. You score 50 points on a guy, and you're like, hey, we want you to run our defense.
Scored 50 on a guy. 50 balled him.
Yeah.
Like, hey, yeah, come on over.
You know,
That was impressive.
We had to overlook that as Mizzou fans. We were like, oh, Blake. 50,
yeah, what happened there?
50. It's okay. Well, you know, we forgive and forget. Wilderness forged. We're in the wilderness together. Blake.
Not anymore.
We're Mizzou fans. We're born in the wilderness. He thinks he's too good for the wilderness, I think.
Clearly.
Yeah. But he's going back home. Can't necessarily blame him too much.
Okay, well, let me ask you this, Cameron.
Yeah.
If he wants to be a head coach, which he probably will be in a season or two, does he just have to move again? Unless he thinks he's taking the LSU job whenever Brian Kelly goes to Michigan and whenever
now what would happen
Harbaugh goes to the NFL.
Okay, yeah. And now with the Alabama job opening up, like...
Oh, you think Blake Baker's going there now? He's just going to take over the world while he's at it?
I'm just saying, the coaching carousel, far from over.
Right.
We do not know what's going to happen with Jim Harbaugh.
It's true.
What would happen, though, I guess Brian Kelly would probably just take his whole staff to Michigan. But then, congratulations, you went home to your home state of Louisiana, and now you got to pack up and go north to Michigan.
There goes that excuse.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're clearly emotional.
Yes, and you know who is handling this all much better than us? Coach Drinkwitz.
At least publicly.
Yes, exactly. In all seriousness, though, I love all the public communication from Coach Drink related to this, and just like, I don't remember what it was, like a coaching conference basically where Coach Drinkwitz was speaking.
He was doing a TED Talk.
Basically, yeah, which love to see it, honestly. He's a natural speaker, clearly. But he was up there talking about how this was the most fun he's had coaching this season. He was able to just love the players and love the coaches. And I can't recreate it with the sort of sincerity and wholesomeness that he injected into this speech. But I don't know. I liked hearing it. And it was the most endearing thing I think we've heard Coach say.
Yeah, probably. Ever. Yeah, exactly. And he specifically brought up Coach Baker leaving, though. And he said, that's one of my best friends. He's a brother to me. And it hurt me really bad personally on a personal level. But, you know, I got over it and I realized that's, you know, he has that right and whatever. So,
and he said,
took the high road.
I'm going to go find another defensive coordinator and I'm going to love him just as much. And that's what you have to do.
If they're good, yeah, I bet he will.
If it's really easy to love everybody when you win 11 games, when you beat Ohio State in a bowl game.
Well, which came first, the love or the wins? We'll never know.
You know what? I'm going to give Coach Drinkwitz credit here.
Absolutely.
The love is what created the wins. That's that secret ingredient.
That's exactly right.
So now Missouri football team is looking for a new defensive coordinator. So there's names flying everywhere. We'll name a few guys here and maybe give our preference and maybe a prediction. No point in doing a prediction. We don't know anything. We'll give preference, though. First name on my list is currently employed with the University of Missouri. That's DJ Smith, current co-defensive coordinator and linebackers coach. Came to Mizzou with Drinkwitz from Appalachian State.
Right. Yeah, we obviously don't know what those relationships look like internally, but, you know, I definitely think this is a pretty strong possibility that they could end up just promoting Smith internally. The thing is, they accounted for $2 million going to Blake Baker, and so they've kind of got some money that they could throw around if they wanted to do that. But also, you've got this very talented defense that's played together, and why come in and mess everything up, you know, by bringing in another candidate from externally. So it will be very interesting to see, like we have the money, but also we kind of have this good situation that we might want to keep together.
There's another aspect of that specifically, though, and I feel like Kevin Peoples is a factor in this. Not that he would necessarily be named defensive coordinator, although maybe there's a co-defensive coordinator promotion, you know, on the table potentially for him to keep him at Mizzou, because there's rumblings and rumors about him leaving town to go to LSU with Baker.
Yeah, Baker is gunning for him for sure, but that would definitely be a unique situation, but one that seems like it would make sense in this situation. It's kind of a co-defensive coordinator situation.
Yeah. Kevin Peoples does have many more years in the business.
And he's never been a defensive coordinator before.
Coach Smith is relatively young as far as coaches go, and has never called plays defensively or anything like that you might want out of a defensive coordinator. But they're already there in-house. I don't know. I think you'd hate to lose either one of those guys if a new defensive coordinator wants to bring assistants of position coaches of his own.
Right.
So
yeah, I think that's absolutely the risk you take if you go out and spend $2 million on a defensive coordinator. Is they're gonna want to start from scratch, probably staff wise and also scheme.
Yeah, it's a little worrisome. I don't know. I feel like
we're supposed to run it back.
I know. Yeah, that's the thing. That's like, in the back of my mind. But I feel like you mentioned the money that we have to spend on a defensive coordinator. I've got trust in Coach Drink to make it happen. And, people were like, this past year, Missouri was 33rd in defense, total defense. So, there's room for improvement there.
Yeah, like all of that came against LSU.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Did Blake Baker throw the LSU game?
Okay.
I saw that thrown around on Twitter.
Wow. Now that's quite an accusation.
I didn't make the accusation. I just asked you.
No, I would say probably no, he didn't.
Okay, I'll agree with you. That was a joke, by the way. I'm gonna get sued.
Yeah, Blake Baker's gonna sue us for defamation. All right. So some other names that we've seen thrown out around the defensive coordinator job. First one I'll say is current SMU defensive coordinator Scott Simons. Graduated from Lindenwood in St. Charles, Missouri. Coached at Arkansas State with Drinkwitz back in 2013. That's a name to keep in mind. Has experience as a defensive coordinator. Has had some good defenses at SMU. I would say maybe not a splash hire or high profile guy, but there is a connection there. Another name I've seen thrown out that I'm just gonna kind of distance myself from this idea a little bit is Jimmy Rogers, current head coach at South Dakota State, back-to-back FCS national champion, but I don't know. I feel like the road to SEC defensive coordinator from FCS head coach, even champion head coach, there's a stop in between, maybe two.
It's an interesting jump for sure. And I feel like a lot of times, obviously these coaching jobs are relationships, and I think that would be an interesting reach for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing, no connection there built in as well. Another name, Jim Leonard. This seems like a long shot, former Wisconsin defensive coordinator. His name is swirling around all different types of jobs, NFL jobs, Colorado defensive coordinator. There's been reports that he's linked to that job recently. So somebody to look into, but probably not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, is Colorado one of our bigger competitors is for going for a defensive coordinator right now?
Yeah, potentially.
I mean, Missouri's got to be one of maybe the biggest player on the market right now looking for a defensive coordinator.
Yeah. Again, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Michigan and Alabama.
Yeah, that's true.
Obviously, they could jump in and be the biggest fish by far.
Yeah, that's going to change potentially.
Speaking of Michigan, though, if things do blow up there, their defensive coordinator, Jesse Mentor, would be a guy you could just throw a bunch of money at and see if he wants to come down to Columbia, especially if there's, investigations or anything like that happening in Michigan. There might be some guys that want to jump ship.
Yeah, I don't know what he's making now, but I would imagine Missouri could pay him more than he's making currently, which is kind of wild.
Is there any name? I got a few more here, but is there anybody that you like in particular or want to mention?
Not really. I feel like at this point in the process, coordinators are tough. It's just really, really tough to project what's going to work and what's not going to work. And I think right now I'm kind of just taking it all in and until we can get a little bit farther down the funnel. And I don't know. It's are we going to hear anything before this hire is official? Or are we just one day it's going to be okay, and hire is official?
I feel like that's what's going to happen. Yeah. There's going to be rumors, obviously, but it's just going to kind of come out of nowhere probably.
Yeah.
I'll give you just a couple more names here. Greg Gasparotto, Tulane defensive coordinator, but hasn't coached there yet, just became the new Tulane defensive coordinator, was the Troy defensive coordinator, was on Drink's staff at Appalachian State in his 1 year there. Troy put up some good numbers defensively with him at the helm.
Definitely, I think Gasparotto is one that makes a lot of sense. He has a personal connection with Drinkwitz. They've coached together before. Troy had a good defense, but I just reiterated everything you said, and that Tulane 100%. That would be really tough to just go snipe him from Tulane, but obviously we just saw that does happen in coaching.
Okay, let me give you a name that I like that I'm going to try to sell you as this guy should be the next Missouri defensive coordinator.
Okay.
And that is Chris Marv. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. He is currently the defensive coordinator at Virginia Tech. So we got Power 5 defensive coordinator experience. He's originally from Texas, played linebacker at Vanderbilt, was an assistant coach at Vanderbilt, at Mississippi State, and Florida State, position coach before taking over as defensive coordinator at Virginia Tech. He's only making $825,000, so you could give him a raise. And Virginia Tech was 20th in total defense this past season, 13 spots better than Mizzou. I feel like if you're trying to, I don't know about his scheme and how that fits and all that kind of stuff, but I feel like if you're trying to replicate Blake Baker's resume on paper, someone like the Virginia Tech defensive coordinator who's worked his way up through the ranks, played in the SEC, has been a position coach in the SEC, makes sense to me.
Yeah.
You on board?
I'm bored. Hey, that sounds good to me. Yeah, 100%. I think you want somebody who's had that kind of experience and has proven that they can do it at the Power 5 level. Obviously, the ACC is not as intense of a league, but he has the track record that's impressive.
Now, this is how it usually goes. I wrote down a name here, no notes at all, other than TCU defensive coordinator Andy Avalos.
I think they just hired him, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think
So that'd be another situation where you're you're taking the guy that just accepted a job.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he would be an incredible candidate, but I think that's probably one of the more long shots that we've talked about.
I was trying to do the thing where we just say a guy's name and then he becomes the coach.
Well, that's what we did with Coach Drinkwitz
Exactly.
like 5 years ago.
Exactly. All right, so that's the defensive coordinator coaching carousel situation as of right now.
Yeah, it's really tough to know what I even want to happen. Like, I think I would honestly feel comfortable. I don't know if comfortable is good, but I think I would feel comfortable if they promoted from within and just said, let's just retain what we have, and maybe next year we're looking at something else. I don't know.
Maybe.
But maybe that's you're setting yourself up for a weird situation in a year potentially, though, if the defense stays good.
Give me Michigan defensive coordinator. That's like a long shot, obviously.
Yeah.
But that'd be a dream candidate.
For sure.
Then give me Virginia Tech defensive coordinator. Then give me DJ Smith.
Yeah. And
that's my top three.
And it's not like this Mizzou defense is this untouchable thing, and that, we are losing quite a few guys to the NFL. So, maybe having a
bringing
guy come
in transfers that are going to start that are going to have to figure out a new scheme anyway.
So obviously bringing in an accomplished defensive coordinator to start from scratch might just end up being the best thing possible.
Yeah. We will see. A lot to unfold there yet. Then lastly, we will just catch up on some recruiting notes from the football team. Trajan Greco, who signed his name on the dotted line on signing day, but kept his commitment secret. But the image got leaked, or they sent out the wrong image with his name on it, so it was kind of spoiled the surprise there. But he did officially commit to Mizzou at the All-American game. So that's the final commit of that class. In the transfer portal, Nick, how do you pronounce his last name? Scorton?
Yeah.
Did not end up visiting Mizzou. The Purdue transfer just committed to A&M right after his visit there. And Troy offensive lineman Derek Graham, who we mentioned previously, also committed to A&M. then take it away. Anybody else that we should keep an eye on visiting or anything like that?
Yeah, so there's one guy that Mizzou is pretty hot and heavy with, and that's Zion Young. He is a defensive end transfer from Michigan State. And Missouri goes pretty far back with Young. He took an official visit to Missouri when he was in high school in 2021. And then he has already visited Missouri and Florida State since announcing that he was going to transfer from Michigan State. So I visited as a high schooler and visited after his sophomore year of college. And but I think Florida State wants him pretty bad too. So it should be a pretty big battle between Missouri and Florida State. But last year he had 26 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, and 1.5 sacks. So as a sophomore, so he'd probably have 2 or 3 years of eligibility. And but Missouri, or we're going to talk about a couple guys here in a second, but Missouri's done pretty well at recruiting defensive linemen in the transfer portal. So I don't know if Zion Young will see that as a negative thing, or if Missouri feels like they're done. Probably not, but definitely a name to watch.
Go ahead with the commits. I feel like I'm about to cough.
Yeah. So Missouri landed 2 defensive linemen. One of them is Isaiah Hastings. He was formerly at Alabama, played 2 seasons at Alabama before Nick Saban retired.
Yeah.
He's 6'4", 300. Probably will play defensive end, but he is pretty versatile and is big enough to play tackle if that's where they feel like he's most fit. But he was top 250 recruit in 2022. Didn't play much at Alabama, but absolutely has plenty of time and talent to be a contributor at Missouri.
Yeah, 3 years of eligibility. Love that.
Yeah. And then the other guy is Sterling Webb, and he is transferring. He's another defensive lineman, more in the defensive tackle mold, but he's transferring from New Mexico State. He had a pretty productive season last year, 30 tackles and 4.5 sacks, and he's 6'2", 300. So 2 quality guys.
Originally from St. Louis.
Yes, that's true. 2 quality guys that I think will contribute immediately, most likely, in some capacity.
Yeah. And then
both of those guys have 3 years of eligibility.
Love that. Then Missouri also got a commitment from transfer running back, who we mentioned last week, Nate Noel from Appalachian State, originally from Miami, Florida. He's listed at 5'10", 185, over 3,000 career yards already, and 18 touchdowns in his time at App State.
Yeah, he had a really solid career, played a lot over his 3 or 4 seasons there. I think he's a really good complement to Marcus Carroll. Carroll's kind of the bigger back, but Nate Noel's kind of the speed guy, getting open space type of player. So it might be a nice little 1-2 punch there.
Just to talk about the running backs for 1 second. So Carroll, Noel, 2 transfers coming in. Then you've got Tavoris Jones and Jamal Roberts on the roster,
right.
Underclassmen that I know obviously fans, including myself, want to see what they can contribute.
For sure.
Do you feel like with those 4, you could kind of just have open competition for the top 2 guys?
Yeah, I think so. At this point, we're still early in the offseason, and I wouldn't be really surprised at this point to see like Tavoris Jones transfer or something, which is totally speculation. But
shouldn't be surprised to see anybody transfer.
Exactly. At this point, he's been in the program for 2 or 3 seasons. Came in pretty heralded in the recruiting scene, but just hasn't really played at all. So it seems like that dream might be dead at this point. But
you have the SEC's leading rusher ahead of you.
That's true.
That's hard to complain too much.
That's very true. He still might have an opportunity, but I see Jamal Roberts as definitely a guy that will compete and could end up playing quite a bit this upcoming season.
Do you maybe Carroll is like the easy answer, but of those 4, who do you think is most likely to be top 5 in the SEC in rushing in a single season before their career is over?
Before their career is over?
Yeah. So not necessarily next year.
Yeah, give me Jamal Roberts. I think he's still probably the most talented of those 4.
Nice, yeah.
And I don't know that I see really Noel or Carroll necessarily as like individually as like that kind of level performer, but as a unit could be really solid.
It is true though that we wouldn't have been able to say the same thing about Cody Schrader.
Yes.
This time last year.
That's absolutely true.
So yeah, it's exciting to see what they'll be able to do. Okay. That I think catches us up on portal and coaching news and everything like that. So I guess we're probably
Will Muschamp to Alabama.
Will Muschamp. I actually did see his name as like a long shot for the Mizzou defensive coordinator.
Oh, yeah.
What's his current job?
He is the co-defensive coordinator at Georgia with someone else who I don't know.
He played at Georgia.
Did he?
Yeah. And his son is on the team.
Oh, really?
So I feel like he's not going anywhere.
He's locked.
Yeah, locked into Georgia.
Unless
But
they want to.
Will Muschamp, head coach at Alabama.
I saw that as just like a tweet,
Yeah.
just like a joke.
That would be incredible.
I don't know if it's a joke, actually. I think it was somebody genuinely sharing that idea.
They probably should tell people that it was a joke. No offense if you tweeted that, if you're listening to this. Good joke. Are we done here?
Yeah.
All right. Producer Cameron, we didn't get to see you very much this episode.
No more SEC pick.
We're not gonna see producer Cameron until next season.
Gonna have to work him into the show more organically somehow. I'll brainstorm that. Special thank you to our Patreon supporters at the $10 level and above: Britt Treese, Brian Smith, Ryan Demore, Tristan, Ben Smith, Parker, Daddy JD, Tim Keynes, Tyler Harsel, Brandon Groffalo, Brandon Hanks, Matthew Tilley, Luis Hernandez, and Joshua Jacobson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We love you. And shout out producer Cameron for killing it always back there. And you can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We're on Twitter at Mizzou Sports Pod, and you can email us at MissouriSportsPod@gmail.com.
You can find our t-shirts and stickers on our online shop, MissouriSportsPod.BigCartel.com.
Is that a Stanley?
Oh, God, I hope not. Yes.
You're a Stanley person.
Oh, let's go.
Wow. You are
I'm
Stanley,
chosen by God.
but you don't have the tumbler. I don't know what kind of bottle that is.
I don't either.
So-
I got it as a Christmas gift like 2 years ago.
You're fraudulent Stanley.
It's fine.
See you next week.
I hope I am.